Hey everybody, Norm from Tested here.
And Kate from Tested.
And welcome back to Model Behavior, where this week we're going to do some diorama building. This is going to be a lot of fun. We are using miniature diorama sets, or like these terrain kits that were designed for tabletop wargaming.
Yes.
We've previously not known about these, but these are beautiful laser cut houses from a post-apocalyptic suburbia from a company called Black Site Studios. So I did a video previously where I assembled these, but they could use some extra storytelling.
They could always use a little something extra.
Yeah, so what can we do to turn this into something that looks like it's gone through some stuff?
It's seen some things. I think first, one of my favorite things in the world, let's put some washes on it. Let's really age it. We can add, splatters of things, cobwebs, some maybe growth that's come up through it. The nature has taken its toll on here. And we can put some evidence of human interaction in there somewhere. I don't know. Let's get crazy with it.
Yeah, we're gonna throw paint on, we're gonna throw some foliage, some flocking. And in that vein, we have a lot of materials to potentially work with, things that we've used on past model making projects. What are some of the things that we might be using?
Well, for things like weathering, I like to make a wash out of oil paints and mineral spirits. We can use some flocking and some fuller's earth, some powders to weather it up. We have foliage, we have some walnut shells, we have hot glue that we can make spider webs out of. Basically, we're just gonna go to town and keep dressing it till it feels too full.
Yes, and really imagining what's the story we want to tell. One of the nice things about these sets is that because they're meant to be played with, they're meant to be interacted with, figures go in here, they open up. So even something like this, a 2.5-story building, you can actually get access to all the interiors from the doors. There's even a sub-level where we could have foliage come out of into it. What does it look like when the ravages of time have taken over these things? Now, you mentioned starting off with a wash. Is that where you think we should start off with?
I think so, because I like to put a wash down before I do my weathering powders. So since these are already have like a base paint kind of on them, we've got a color going. I think that starting off with a wash would give it a nice base to then like add some powders on top of that.
All right, and for that we have oil paints in a variety of natural colors, from our burnt umbers to just solid matte black. Let's get some paintbrushes and start weathering it up. We've started throwing some oil paints on here. You've mixed up some paint. Now we're mixing with mineral spirits, which really thins it out. But also this is like MDF, which is different than like the resins we're used to painting. How does that change how you want to approach a wash?
You will notice that something like an MDF is going to be much more porous, and it will soak up some of that liquid that we're putting on there. So definitely be mindful not to, really drench the material, and be pretty on top of it with soaking it back up with the paper towel. But otherwise, it's really nice because it accepts the stain really well. So you don't have to worry about all of it just rolling right off. It'll stay in place as you put it on there, and I like that.
I also like the way they designed these sets, like the wood floorboards. They laser etched in the panel lines, which is then naturally, like you said, absorbing.
Yeah, and that is nice. It'll fall into the cracks and grooves there and highlight that. Now, sometimes you'll notice that it's hard to get your paper towel in there to wipe up the bits. You can try something like a cotton swab if you want to go smaller scale. But another trick sometimes I do is I'll rip off a piece of my paper towel and I'll wrap it around something like a popsicle stick. And that will let me get in there and push around and really soak up any of the bits without disturbing the scene too much.
So my interior is already a different color than the walls that Kate has. Mine has these nice panel lines. They're dark already, and I have a raw umber that I'm putting in. Just add some contrast, because without it looks good. With a little bit of dirt and grime, it'll look just a little more defined. And where I'm putting it is along the edges, where I think dirt could build up, where in the corners between the walls, where things might be leaking. Heavier around there. and then leaving just little blank spaces of the natural wood color in between those. I don't need to cover the whole thing in this umber color. We've gone through a first pass now with a little bit of our brown colors or umbers just to make that wood look a little older. And now we're moving to a second shade of color, which is a lighter color. We're adding white to it. And what does white do for something like this?
Something I really like it for is you can see I've done some on the roof here. And while there are a few chunks where some of the actual paint has globbed on there, you'll see actually just some lighter pockets here where it's not making it bright white, but it's just allowing there to be a color differentiation. Something I really like is it can mimic the appearance of maybe a calcium deposit, something where there's been a lot of water in there and it's left behind these white streaks. So I really like that, especially on some of the darker areas.
And for a laser cut kit like this, where some of that natural burning comes in from the manufacturing process, that can add darkness, but that can't add the white. And so this is where we're doing some more of the contrast.
I think something else that's worth noting with the white is if you think of wood that has been exposed to the elements for a while, it's not going to be as dark and rich as it was before. So the white really helps bring out that aged, weathered look on wood. So I think a lot of these steps and exposed beams could really benefit from that lightening up.
I think it's time for some blood.
Yes.
So what do we got here?
I have found some crimson oil paints that I think plays pretty good for blood. We can do a few smears on the inside, you know, possibly there was a zombie attack or, I don't know, maybe a dispute between two people, who knows?
Yeah, there are a lot of holes potentially in the ground for people to have been dragged through. This is where the fun storytelling comes in. I definitely think you're right. Smears past the doors, outside these open doorways. Are you gonna apply with the brush, same thing, and then kind of wipe it?
If you need any special smears, I recommend maybe getting a cotton swab out to rub through that. I'm also going to take a little bit of rub and buff and maybe play on a few areas, things like door handles and hinges. See if I can get a little bit of a pop of color, but not too bright because this whole thing's supposed to be pretty run down.
I went a little overboard. But that's the fun.
Just enough. I love it. I love it.
Really tell a story. I love what you did there. You painted some tracks in.
Yeah, I imagined that this house has been taken over by nature, and so along with all of the plants I'm gonna put in there, that's gonna include some really scary animals, I think, that came in.
So we're done with the paint pass, and now it's time to add the environmental weathering. So there's gonna be foliage, there's also gonna be a lot of just dirt, dirt and dust. And for that, we have a lot of earthy powders.
Yes, they're milk paint pigment powders. So essentially, I believe the original intended use is that you mix them with a water or possibly a milk, some kind of a liquid to make a paint. But I've been using them as weathering powders. I used them on the blimp, and I was really happy with some of the results I got, so.
Is this, do you want to do a Fuller's Earth style application in a bag, or can we sprinkle them on, or with a brush?
You know, I feel like when you put them in a bag or a sachet, you're usually looking for a uniform dusting over a large surface. Whereas this, I think we might want to be a little more precise. So since we have a few different colors, I would say we'll make up a few cups. We can dip dry paintbrushes in them and use that to just brush on the surface, maybe flick some on, but it'll be a little more controlled this way. All right, I have added the last bit of weathering powder. I've even added a bit of stuff sitting on the roof, and I like the placement of everything, so I'm going to go ahead and give a coating of matte finish. This way, no matter how much I handle it, hopefully it'll all stay stuck in place.
We have dirt, we have grime, we have blood, and now it's time for nature to really take over.
Yes.
Greenery.
We've got a bunch of this like Spanish moss, both dried and green. We have some artificial greens here in sheet form. We have some walnut shells, and we've got a big old jar of flocking.
Now, to apply this stuff, we can be very precise about it in terms of just putting glue on and then covering it up, almost painting on where we want this stuff to grow. And with some of the stuff, scale is going to be important. Like, what does this represent? And like something like that could be a branch.
Totally.
Right? A branch that's fit into a roof somewhere, right? Into a cavity.
Perfect.
Coming out. And so again, it's time to be creative and tell our story. It's like we've traveled forward in time, maybe 50 years.
Yes.
Because our houses are overgrown.
They really are.
I think the last step's probably the most fun part. Putting all the flocking, the foliage, finding the places that naturally set. It turns out that just using some spray glue really helps.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, when you add the spray glue, it actually adds a really nice dulling effect, so it helps add to the look of the age.
Yeah, I love that the way your flocking naturally fell right into the seams, the way it sticks to walls, the rooftops. Something that was cool that you did, I see, it's really noticeable on here, is you clumped it up.
Yeah, after I sprinkled it on the top, I took an acid brush and just started pushing it around, and it clumped up. I felt like it was a too evenly coated large swath, so I just started pushing it around.
And because there are etched seams, even on the roofs, like these panels, it looks like they've grown all around the tiles of the rooftops.
Something I really liked on yours is how you started to get the openings in the walls. You just made sure that there was lots of greenery covering all of those openings. That looked really good.
Yeah, and that's really a testament to the design of this model kit. You know, these are multi-layered walls, there's almost an internal frame structure, and so in places where the frame is exposed, of course, that would be where moss and foliage would grow. It's really fun to see the transformation happen from dirt, blood, dust, to flocking, to greenery. And this is, even if you don't play war games, it's a fun thing to build out and display.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could go on and on and on. These are projects that if we had more time, we could add so much more.
Right.
But with just a couple hours of work, you can turn what's essentially a laser cut dollhouse into a post-apocalyptic scene.
A wonderland of gore.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. Kate, thank you so much for building this with me. Super fun. If you guys do any of your own model kit building and weathering of wargaming terrain, we'd love to see photos, videos. Please post them in comments below. But Kate and I will be back in the future on another project. We'll see ya.